But she said. Just, just saying, just to mix it up, just to throw people off.
Good morning, all. We're ready to start the Iron County Commission meeting, Monday, the 24th day of October, 2022. We will start out with at first, I need to excuse Paul. He's out of town. And Mike will say us a prayer, and I will do the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity today to meet the Iron County Commission and citizens of Iron County. We're thankful for the moisture that we've received and the beauty that the snow has brought. We ask that it will continue through the winter, that our aquifers may be replenished. Father, we ask that thy Spirit be with us today in this meeting, that we will be able to take into consideration the proposed items and do the best for the citizens of Iron County. We're grateful for the peace and prosperity that we're blessed with in our area, and ask that thy Spirit will continue to be with us. Father, we're thankful for our military, our first responders, and the people that keep us safe and keep the peace in our community and in our nation, and ask a special blessing to be upon those folks in these troubled times. Father, again, we're grateful for all of our blessings and ask for thy Spirit. Pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Can I get a motion on the approval of the minutes for 10/10/2022?
Yeah, I would move for approval of the minutes for our meeting October 10th of 2022.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get approval for the claims?
I'll also make a motion to approve claims for
October.
There we are. October 10th through October 23rd, 2022.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will move to reports. Chad Dotson, our attorney.
Morning.
Morning.
Just have a update on some figures for you.
Thank you.
So what I've just given you is just an update through Friday, October 21st. We have received 918 cases, referrals for prosecution for district court, 71 juvenile court. And then this doesn't encapsulate all of them, but speeding and traffic, 157 for justice court. And then I've broken that down into some of the categories that we usually track. There's several different crime categories, but I've just selected a few there. Nothing out of the ordinary. This seems to be where we are the last couple of years when I compare that from the previous years. So the trend is we're staying pretty steady, which is a good thing. Wanted to give an update. We've had some good trainings. Shane Clank, my chief deputy, he works with the Utah Prosecution Council. He was asked to go do a training with them in Idaho this month on cross-examination, which is a good thing. I think it shows the relationships we have with our counterparts in the state and some of the good work that's being done. We've really tried to implement some strategies, especially with sexual assault cases, how we prosecute those. It's some innovative and new ways that we're trying to. They're difficult cases, but some of the strategies we're using, I think, are showing to be successful. Red Ribbon Week this week in the high schools. Our juvenile prosecutor, Chase Troutner, and myself will be at Canyon View High School on Friday doing a presentation. I think it's always good to get out into the schools and speak with our students. That should be a good thing. Trajan Evans is implementing our SART team, which is a meeting that he's putting together with the detectives, investigators in the county, staffing, and again, strategizing on sexual assault cases that come in the county. Some of our most challenging cases to prosecute. So that is a good thing. The SART team, I think when you have a successful and a intentional team, prosecutions are more successful. Budget looks fine, no concerns there. I think we'll be under budget and don't have any concerns. The main thing that I want to discuss is Wendy's here to talk as well. We have a new director, as you know, for the Children's Justice Center. We're excited for her. I think she's going to be wonderful. She's kind of getting thrown into the fire. Last Monday was her first day. A lot to learn and a lot going on. she's gonna be wonderful, and we are learning a lot of things that I think we can improve and improve the process at the Children's Justice Center. So, do you guys have any questions for me about any of these figures or anything that we're doing?
I
Nope.
think we're good.
You know, I like to do these
Thank
really
you.
quick. So, yeah.
Thanks, Chad.
Okay. Appreciate you
you.
guys. and your
Appreciate you.
support. Is Wendy next?
We're actually got Lori in Justice Court.
Need her to go next.
Do you want to? Do you
Y'all
want
can
her to
arm
be
wrestle
next?
over who's next.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we should just start doing is
Arm wrestling.
some kind of an arm wrestle tournament to see who goes first.
I imagine Wendy would be glad to have it done. So would Lori.
Just talking every commission meeting, we have a mini cage fight, and then, just mostly for my entertainment.
That seems 100% appropriate. Yeah.
Let's throw the octagon.
mud wrestling.
In the middle of the room. Yeah, we mix it up. Different feats of strength.
Okay,
Sorry.
mine should be pretty quick and easy also. First sheet you have there is the budget, and we are fine. We are on target. There's no issues to discuss. From a staffing standpoint, we're currently down one clerk, and we are going to be conducting interviews tomorrow. So hopefully we'll vet, someone that would be a good team member for us. And I know that number 7 is on the agenda for today, and that's the resolution regarding Judge Miller's retirement in that position. So Judge Miller, she's probably going to kill me when she hears this, but she doesn't want a lot of fanfare, and this is the end of her term. And I think publicly I do need to say, since it'll be the last commission report that we'll have prior to her actual retirement. So just a huge thank you to Judge Miller, not only from me, from the court, from the community, for all her years of service. 49 years and 46, I believe, on the bench. She can correct me if I'm wrong. But I would be remiss if I did not at least, try to honor her in some way today. And we will look forward to your review of that resolution and moving forward. Okay, with Judge Dunlap. Filling the back position. I've got there the report that I usually provide for you. And like Chad said, it seems like, from the standpoint of citations filed, we are pretty neck and neck with 21. The only thing I'd say slightly ahead in moving violations, and the only thing that was kind of noteworthy to me is that domestic violences were more than double what they were last year, is what's been filed in the Justice Court. And then the only other thing that I do that I like to include for you is just the citation comparisons from year to year, and we are pretty much on target with. Not that there is a target, but I'm just saying that we're consistent with what 21 produced in terms of filings. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Nope.
We had budget meetings with Lori earlier, in the middle of last week,
Last
and we
week.
had a long conversation, so we covered lots of stuff there.
Yeah,
We
we-
don't-
We're good. We're good.
Yeah,
All
we-
right, I thank you all.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lori. We appreciate you. Okay, we'll go to Victims Advocate Bree.
I just want Wendy to have to wait. And I'm really, nervous
That's what I was
because I've
thinking,
had
too.
It's great.
I was
Oh,
just going in order.
when I get up here and I have stuff
Thank
to
you.
go.
Thank you.
You can be included, Sam.
That's all right. Just leave it down.
Okay, so in your little box, I realized that I had an error. So the emergency funding, that was for last year, and I just forgot to delete it. So you can disregard that because it's not accurate for this quarter. We have not spent $4,000 in a quarter.
Oh.
So
Very good.
disregard that. So for the last quarter, we've served 251 clients. They've been 52 of them male, 190 of them female, and then there was 9 that were not reported. The ages for 0 to 12 was 24, 13 to 17 was 36, 18 to 24 was 50, and 25 to 59 was 124, and then 60 and older was 13, and then there's that other 4 that was not reported. For adult physical assault, we had 45 victims. Adult sexual assault, we had 18. Child physical abuse or neglect was 36. Child sexual abuse was 73. Domestic abuse or family violence was 71. And then our stalking injunction, or stalking, harassment, and violation of a court order, I kind of combined those this time. There was 38 of them. And you'll see below in one of Jaden's kudos that we've kind of worked to monitor phone calls and different things to make sure that people are being held accountable when they're in jail. So that might have contributed to a little bit of an increase in that number from last quarter. And then there were 72 victims with more than one victimization. And then, like every quarter, I ask my advocates what they're most proud of. Jaden said that he was most proud of his work in establishing jail release agreements, as well as monitoring and reporting jail call violations when offenders are contacting their victims from custody. He's worked really closely with Randall McCune to charge several offenders. So we all have access to the jail phone call systems and can kind of check on them or ask the jail to help us monitor things. So Jaden also feels like he's helped solidify things at Cedar PD so that everyone's on the same page. Sometimes with large departments, it's difficult to make sure that everybody knows what the process is and what's kind of expected. So he's worked really hard to make sure that they all understand the process and what's expected of them. And he's also done the same with SUPD. Wendy didn't send me anything, so obviously I fired her from her position. I'm just kidding. She's now the CJC director, so I think that's a pretty huge accomplishment. We're super proud of her and excited for her, even though it sucks for us. One thing that I didn't include on there, Jaden and Wendy both received commendation medals at our awards banquet. Thank you again for attending, Commissioner Wood. And that was a super fun event. We had a good turnout. We were able to donate some of the unused food to Canyon Creek Services to feed their shelter clients. So that was a good event. So we have some changes in our program. We're currently hiring for Wendy's position. That application closes on the 28th, so this Friday, right? And then we're hoping to do interviews on the 4th, which will also be my last day working for the county. I haven't accepted a position for the Utah Office for Victims of Crime. I know. So there's going to be some changes, and we'll be working through that. I'll be hopefully meeting with the sheriff and Lieutenant Mitchell today to discuss everything. That's kind of all I had. I just wanted to say thank you guys for all of your support over the past 4 years of this program. It's been great working for the county, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We really appreciate
Thank you. Absolutely.
You've done a great job.
If you have any questions, I can answer them.
We're good.
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Finally, we get to Wendy, our new CJC director, and we're so excited to have her on board. Wendy Jessen.
Okay.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Wendy Jessen, and like Chad mentioned, brand new here, but I do have familiarity as working with Bree as a victim advocate of a lot of things with the CJC. So just an overview of what's been going on for this quarter. So July, August, and September, we had 78 interviews of children in Iron County. 19 so far in October, which brings our total for 2022 so far at 197, which is quickly approaching 2021's total of 239. And then Beaver County for the quarter had 14 interviews, which is 21 this year. Kane County had 6 for a total of 16 this year, and Garfield had 1, which is a total of 3 this year. So, and then if you turn this over, that page over, that's about the CJC contracted therapy. So Iron County, they have 99 kids that they've been seeing for a total of 532 sessions. Beaver County, 15 children for 97 sessions. Kane had 39 kids for 219 sessions, and Garfield had 0. So as far as getting started goes, so I've been in conversations with Tracy Tabbitt. She's at the AG's office, as you know, and working on setting up a time where I can go up there and do onboarding with the Attorney General's office. I've also been working with Jennifer Davis on the Friends Board.
Pull that. There you go.
Jennifer Davis on the Friends Board, and working with her and talking about the new CJC that we're going to be building, and looking at blueprints, and not blueprints, but less than blueprints. I don't have the word for that right now.
Plans, just some
Plans,
plans.
just some plans.
I'm all nervous, so my words leave.
You're okay.
Also, we're working toward the Dancing with the Stars, which is a super great fundraiser. That is November 15th at 7 p.m. I have tickets. Any of the dancers have tickets, the Friends Board members. So that is in full swing. Pun intended. Anyways, that's a lot of hard work that goes into that. And so I'm really appreciative of that. Also been working close with the county attorney's office as we're trying to adjust and maybe restructure and just kind of figure out some things there and what we need. There will be grant funding cuts coming up, so we're trying to navigate that as best we can. That's statewide. Also, I'm trying to make sure I didn't forget something. And then besides that, I just want to express like my huge appreciation. Stephanie Rainey has been fantastic to work with, and nothing like training your superior, right? And trying to help get things started there. And of course, the Children's Justice Center would not function the way it does without our fantastic team, the multidisciplinary team, which includes DCFS and investigators and other partners to help make sure kids are being treated well and getting the services and supports they need. So that is a huge, huge shout out to everybody that we work with. That keeps things going great. Not any one person can do that, but it's a huge team effort. So, any questions?
No.
No,
Really.
I'm just thrilled that you're on board and we'll go forward. So I'm excited. I guess we've got a lot of changes in the victims advocate, it sounds like, but we'll work through that too.
Yep,
So-
it'll be good. I'm excited.
Very good.
Good. Okay.
All right.
You.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess we'll go to commission.
Great.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go first, because I didn't. I usually jot notes, and I didn't.
We had a ribbon cutting with the BZI team out on Iron Springs Road on the 10th, and it was great. It was really nice that we was able to. They had the rails sitting right there. They'll take those railroad rails and go put them in as soon as the groundbreaking was done. They took the truck right over the road and they were going to go start installing those. I went to an open house on the 11th, and that was for Align Precision. It was really a nice open house. Formerly Morton Metalcraft is that business, and there's new owners, and it was really cool that that Governor Cox actually came to that
You know,
open house.
it hasn't been Morton Metalcraft since about
Morton
1994.
Hasn't it? Was it just Metalcraft?
It was just
It was just
Metalcraft.
Metalcraft.
It's actually evolved, but anyway, I just had
Okay.
to tease you.
And that was really nice. Of course, the one Utah Summit was the 11th through the 13th. One of the highlights there was Sean Bradley and his wife spoke at that. He was injured in a bicycle accident and was paralyzed, and just his great outlook on life I thought was very inspiring, and I appreciated that. But there was a lot of really good speakers, and they gave out quite a few awards. The Utah Rural Leadership Academy talked me into being a part of that, which is going to be a fun thing and hopefully I'll learn a lot of new leadership skills, which I can will be beneficial to me, I'm sure. That same day in the afternoon, Utah Inland Port Authority had their board meeting at SUU, and that was great. They're reorganized. They're going forward. We was able to have a presentation from our economic development, Danny Stewart. I didn't write that down. He gave a great presentation, and afterward, Paul and I took one of the commissioners from Duchesne County on a little tour. She said, "What's all this stuff?" She said, "You guys just should have the inland port. You know, you got all this great stuff going." Anyway, we took her on a little tour. She was mostly impressed with our landfill, I have to say. We took her out on Iron Springs and showed her a lot of the resort out there and the RV park, and she was really impressed. It was a fun little day. So, and then there was two different conferences that overlapped. The 2022 Freeze Summit, which is Free Roaming Equine and Ecosystem Sustainability Network, which is actually the Wild Horse and Burro Conference. That was in St. George. So I ran down to it for a couple of days, and I was very impressed with, they've brought on board a lot of the animal rights people, and I think it's been very educational for them to see that you know, the horses are suffering. When they have too many on the range, they are suffering. And so there's a lot of strides that I think that they've made over the past few years by having this conference, and so that's been really nice. The ASPCA was involved with it. The American Wild Horse Campaign was involved with that also. That was just a couple of the groups, but I think that was I think we're making strides with that, so I'm excited about that. Let's see. We went over to Garfield County on the 17th, Paul and I, and we the BLM Senior Policy Advisor on Grazing, Earl Rice, ERROL is his name, and he's a rancher from up north, I think from either Montana or Wyoming, and he's helping with that, the revision of the grazing, which makes me very nervous that with this administration. But we talked to him about some of our issues that we have on the public lands, and that was good. We had I attended a Zoom call on the High Desert Trail. Last year, the legislature allocated $1 million for signage, and so we're getting ready to go on it, and Mike Worthen has been very active and involved with that. While I was on that call, Paul went to the CDBG, that always gets me, workshop, how to do, has a great big book like this thick, and they you have to have, that's the community development grant, block grant, and an elected official must go to and attend that workshop, and Paul was able to do that. Friday, the October 21st, we have a Zoom call that we have not every Friday, but quite often on Friday, which is the Natural Resource and Public Lands Committee meeting. They talked about that we had missed about some monies that came from some of the COVID money that NACO had put together. Actually, Mark Whitney, being the president of the Public Lands Council for NACO, put together some payment in lieu of taxes, a different pot of money, a different tranche of money, and we didn't know about it. And so thank goodness I was on that call, and I called Mark afterward and said, is this something? Anyway, we was able to, and we'll probably be able to get that monies from that. So that was a good thing. But okay, that's all of mine.
Awesome.
So now it's your turn.
Okay. So, to go back and review my calendar.
Oh, I know. Which I didn't go in real detail about the Inland Port Authority, because I thought you would probably want to talk about that.
So let's skip right to that. So Inland Port Authority, and we've talked about it in this meeting before and others, but the potential for an inland port project in Iron County is huge. It would be, I don't even know where to keep it brief. Well, we have a half hour, but nobody wants to hear it for half an hour. We have a real opportunity to open up the markets and open up transportation and shipping for both on the rail, the airport, and the freeway. We've been working with the Inland Port Authority for the past few years. Their organization, I don't know what the word to use, if you call it imploded or something happened there, and they reorganized. They have a new director. They have a completely new board of directors, and that's a really good thing for us. So we were able to attend their board meeting. The fact that they held a board meeting in Cedar City was a huge deal. After the board meeting, Danny Stewart, who is our Director of Economic Development, who presented in the board meeting about our resources and infrastructure in Iron County, Danny and I arranged helicopter tours for all of the board members. We had SUU Aviation. We took 2 helicopters. I was the tour director on one, Danny on the other. But we were able to take these guys and show them in detail our rail access. We talked a great deal about the airport. They didn't know that our airport was capable of landing large planes. They're like, oh, we're like, oh no,
Wow.
we can land large cargo. So that was,
I think we have the third longest runway in the state,
yeah,
behind like Salt Lake and the Provo Airport.
yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a lot of great capabilities here, but we were able to go. We were able to show them the transload facility that BZI broke ground on the day before that, and we were just able to have some really great conversations with them as far as moving forward. And it's kind of exciting because they've broken down their system. You know, they have a designated inland port area in the northwest quadrant of Salt Lake, which is causing there's just a lot of red tape to go along with that area. And to be able to show them that we're already moving forward in public-private partnerships as far, with BZI and with the Nichols and all of these other
A lot
entities.
of opposition in Salt Lake County too.
Yeah, and through
Opposition.
this through the whole process, we've worked together as a region with Beaver County, Kane County, Washington County. We're all together kind of on that same page. And that was really impressive to them that, we're able to say, that they said, well, what does Washington County think about this? Oh, Washington County, we meet with them every time we have these meetings. They don't have any rail in Washington County. Washington County's not a feasible project area. They're missing the rail, which is the main component. So we're working together with them.
Their businesses want rail.
Yeah,
Their businesses need rail, and so it'd be.
and when we have these meetings, we have a room full of people, both from the private sector, from the business sector, from government, from, it's just been super productive. So when we're able to lay that all out for the port, they're like, ooh, but they've also broken down into different. They'll have designated project areas that are not necessarily the main port, which I think better suits. It defines what we've got going rather than us competing with the port.
Yeah, and
project.
our businesses want it so badly right now that they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So
that was really good. We had a lot of great conversations, and we got to fly around in a helicopter for a minute.
I have to tell you, their favorite part was they had just a little extra time, so they flew over the Kolob. Can you imagine? I would love to do that someday.
Well, we had one guy that he's like, my time is really limited. So really the idea was like a 15-minute, just a quick tour.
Yeah.
And we got up in the air and he's like, okay, so my time's not that limited. I was just really scared. And he's like, now that we're up, it's not as scary. I'm like, okay, have you got a little bit? Oh, yeah, I've got till next Thursday. We're like, well, we don't have that much gas. But really, so that enabled us to go down around Pine Valley and up through Kolob. It extended our trip to probably close to an hour. But during that hour, there was continuous talk about the port. And, there was a whole lot of work that got done in that extra flight time, plus some really awesome views. And so it was well worth the ride. We left there with a pretty strong partnership.
Very
So,
good.
Can I just say too, Danny is we're so fortunate to have Danny. He's so dynamic, and one of the great things about him is how collaborative he is.
Yep.
And Mike has witnessed this, but Danny actually comes from, at least in part, from Milford, and he has a deep appreciation of and relationships with the folks that do rail, and he's been able to leverage that. And I think one of the great testaments is the fact that compared to the Salt Lake organization, we're already like 80% there.
Right.
Like, and instead of making it this big thing, we're just moving forward and making it work. And I'm super proud of Mike and Danny and everybody who's made it happen. I think that's been a great thing, and it will be for our community. And I didn't think about just how big of an impact that will have on Beaver and Washington and Garfield and Kane.
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and I really want to publicly thank SUU Aviation, Mike Maurer and Rich Cannon and Sean. I can't remember Sean's last name, but Sean, I've flown around with Sean several times, whether it be during the floods and this. They're so accommodating as far as economic development and emergency management. If we call and say, okay, we've got this group coming that we'd really like to help understand our local infrastructure. They're like, just tell us when and how many. And they're like, if we can help facilitate bringing good growth to Iron County and economic development to Iron County, we're in every single time. And so they're really helpful, and what a great asset in our community. And really, when we made the decision to help them finalize to purchase the helicopter for the
Police.
sheriff's department, for law enforcement, that really solidified our relationship with them, which opened the doors to all this other stuff. I mean, they were instrumental in the flooding, to be able to get real-time data to the people on the ground, where the breaks were, where the problems were. And now thankfully we're not in emergency situations anymore, but to load the whole Port Authority, all their staff and everybody on helicopters and say, here we are.
Take
Yes,
a-
sir.
For your record, it's Sean Hayner.
Hayner.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
it's awesome.
so it's we really appreciate those guys.
Definitely.
And they're pretty
Anything
They're
else?
pretty entertaining. Yeah, I'm just going to hit some tourism. I attended the state tourism board meeting and dinner the other night. We talked a lot about the folks that I talked about. We talked a lot about possible hotel projects in Parowan. I encouraged, and not to say that that's going on, but there are some hotel owners and such that on that board that I really encouraged them that with the upgrade of the fairgrounds and the things going on here and becoming hopefully a year-round facility, that we could really use some
Yeah.
lodging here.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
I beat that drum for a while. That was good. There's a whole bunch, but I'll just leave it with that. There were,
Okay.
yeah, that's the highlights.
Okay.
There's a
Very
whole bunch
good.
of little things, but that's,
All right. Well, I think we'll finish up unless there's something
I
else
just
you
wanted
have.
to kind of report a little bit. We've
Okay.
had kind of a rough week with our ballots. They went
Definitely.
in the mail on time, and we're not sure where they are in the Postal Service, but we're aggressively finding out right now. The Cedar Post Office wondered where they are, and so did we, and so we are in contact with. There's a bit of bureaucracy within the Postal Service, but we've been pushing on all those Jenga blocks, and hopefully before the meeting is over, we'll have some good information on the progress of those ballots. But they were mailed on time, but I'm hoping they haven't sat on someone's dock or something for days. So we're gonna find out and hopefully report before the meeting's over.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
awesome.
All right. We'll come back at 10 o'clock for our 10 o'clock meeting. Thanks, everybody. Let's hear it.
Is Paul sick today?
He's out of town.
Okay, we're rolling.
We're rolling.
Actually, give me just a second just to make sure.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to the 10 o'clock meeting for the Iron County Commission, Monday, the 24th day of October, 2022. And we will move forward on agenda item number 1, public hearing, discussion and possible approval of a proposed zone change for agriculture 20 acres to commercial for approximately 0.45 acres. Located at approximately 3437 East Highway 14, Cedar City, Utah. And we'll turn the time over to Reed.
Good morning, Commission.
Good morning.
This is a request that has been forwarded from the Planning Commission for approval of a zone change from A20 to commercial. This is just up the canyon, just up Cedar City Canyon, across from Milt's Restaurant, right where you turn to go up the right hand off of Highway 14. This is a piece of property that's located on the north side of Highway 14. Here's where Milt's Restaurant is, and here's right-hand canyon turn. So if you didn't turn up right-hand, you'd turn left into this piece of property. There are several other properties here. There's a couple of homes. There's a couple of homes in here. There's a RV park here. We've had some other commercial interest here. And so the property is zoning wise, this is not an updated map, and we need to get our map updated because there is another commercial piece across the property where the RV park is. But this little piece of property, they're looking at developing just a little access off of the front right here to be able to do a little convenience store. This is the property. It's just they've cleared the trees already and spread some gravel there, and their interest is to just have a few parking spaces and a small trailer there that they can sell some drinks and things, hot chocolate in the winter and some cold drinks in the summer as people are coming and going up and down the canyon. So it's not a big enterprise, but it is some commercial interest. And we have had a hearing, notified the adjacent property owners, haven't had any concerns from anybody in the area. I think they all recognize the amount of traffic that goes there is really in the junction with going up the canyon. It's a kind of a commercial area with Milt's across the street. And so Planning Commission recommended approval, and that's where we're at.
Okay. Chair will open a public hearing. Is that what we need to do?
It is.
Okay.
Before you do that, let me just review a couple of other things.
Okay.
The services for this area, that they are on a private well. There's a well there that can serve that. The applicant is Jeremy Laws. He lives in the property right behind this, and so it passes along the side of this up into his where his home is. And so it's convenient for him to operate right there. And they would be operating off of a septic. There is no planned, or for sewer, there is no planned septic right now because we default, of course, to Southwest Public Health for all sanitation, and they've approved the water system already for the well that the house is on to serve water there. And when they have water, they'll allow somebody to use a septic for a small system, or excuse me, a porta potty for a small system like that, where they'll look at for the future trying to do one, and it depends on how many customers they have and how much is going on there. But Southwest Public Health will be aware of that and monitor that. But for the interim, they would permit a porta potty to be used there because of the size, how small the facility is, and how many parking spaces they have, and what their projections are. They would allow them to do that. So therefore, we default to them, and unless the commission felt otherwise. But in issuing a building permit, we always default to Southwest Public Health for the septic or for the sewer, and that's what they would allow. There is power in the area. Drainage is good coming off the highway, and so all the other services can be provided for a small commercial operation.
Okay. Very good. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Come up and state your name, please.
My name is Bill Pressgrove. The only question I have is the way it was presented. It looks like the major consumers that would be using this facility would be those that are in the RV park. Is there any access from the RV park to the parking lot or to the sidewalk or whatever to go to this this convenience store without having to get out onto 14?
The highway, yeah, yeah.
There's not currently, there's no sidewalk or improvements along the highway there. The entrance to the RV park is a little bit further up, and so the RV park actually has and sells some of the same things for the customers of the RV park. I think they're expecting their customer base to be more
Off the highway.
off the highway. Yeah, I don't think that they anticipate a lot. There could be some there, but that's not what they expect.
They already have a small
Yeah,
store
they
over
have a
in
little
the other
store
one.
in there in the
Yeah.
RV office. Yeah.
Okay. Any more comments on this agenda item number 1? Looks like none, so we will close the public hearing and we'll go back to Reed.
Okay, as we've reviewed, these are again just a list of things that we review and consider for feasibility. Again, that's what we look at zone changes, that it's feasible to provide the type of facilities and services that are allowed in that zoning district. And it does. The Planning Commission found that it did. And so unless there are any questions, I think we find that it meets the criteria of the feasibility for such a project and move forward.
Okay, let's have a motion, I guess.
I'd move for approval of the proposed zone change from agriculture 20 acres to commercial for approximately 0.45 acres located at approximately 3437 East Highway 14 with the coordinates as mentioned in the agenda.
Okay, second. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to number 2. Public hearing, discussion and possible approval of ordinance 2022-7 and ordinance modifying chapter 12.04, country roads generally, and add chapter 12.05, public roads by use. And I guess you got here just in time. Good
I
job,
did.
Richard.
I did. I ran into Karsten and I didn't realize I was going to be so nick and tucks because we were talking a minute ago. All right, so we have the ordinance. John, have you got an ability to pull that up for us? Thank you. Man, Sam must have taken this phone call so he could.
Yeah, where is Sam? He's out there. He's not in court, is he?
No, no. As you remember, and we've discussed this quite a bit in the last year, we've had challenges with mostly misunderstandings of these public roads by use, or I think the law calls them abandoned to public use.
Richard, do you want me to put up the
ordinance.
538 version, the 543 version on Friday afternoon?
last
or the
version.
601 version? I just had to give you a hard time. Poor Marilee was having a...
Oh, I'll tell you, I was on the phone with her. It would have been a lot simpler if I'd have been in person to introduce the rewrites. I realized
I'm
every
just giving
time
you-
I reread it, it made
You had to.
it left something
do.
out. It didn't
Oh.
make sense.
Oh.
So
Did you finally get it right, though?
well, we'll see, because I haven't seen the last version. I'd asked her to
Sorry, my
switch 2
computer's being slow.
paragraphs around. All right. So in this ordinance, there is the explanation of why and the what and where we have our legal basis. And perhaps, Sam, you could speak to that first, the first portions.
Sure. So I'm trying to think of the actual statute portion. in any event, there's a statute that specifically indicates the criteria to determine whether a road used by the public over a period of time may be abandoned to public use. And so a lot of times, as Rich was saying, we come across these instances where they have historic roads, hunting roads, or roads that were actually platted in some cases, but those aren't considered abandoned to public use. Those are platted. In any event, so to address this ongoing issue, we've kind of talked about the pervasive nature of these roads in our county. They come up a lot. And Reed can speak to that. Rich, in your tenure here, 18 months or so, it's come up a lot. And so we come to the commission now with this proposal to assist us in addressing this. But there's a legal basis for it. We talk about our desire to work with members of the public and helping them understand. Like I said, there's a statute we can review together if you'd like, but basically we've taken progressive steps. The planning and building department and the engineer's office have all worked together to create a criteria for how we review these roads. I think it's a sound review, and this ordinance would work in conjunction with that to kind of help assist the county as we deal with these frequent issues. So that's kind of where we're coming from at this point, if I've said that accurately.
Well, and
Yes.
there was no penalty before. This will give a penalty.
Yes,
It'll
and
give
we
you the ability to give a penalty, right?
right, and we talked to the county sheriff to be sure that he was on board with this so that he can tell his officers. So, a lot of times you look at things and it looks reasonable when it's one landowner explaining it to you, but when you talk to both landowners or others, the officers get one side of a story, and of course they get the most beneficial side. And so if this stays in the preview of the engineers department, the planning and building, and with the guidance of Sam, and we'll do our reviews on these roads when there becomes an issue of he said or he said, she said type of thing. We have set up a system we feel that will give us the backing we need to make a recommendation. Well, and it needs to be understood, I think Sam said this, none of these cases are that we make a determination on will be the final say if a court gets involved. A judge would make that determination at the conclusion of the day. But most of the people, once they understand the process and understand why, it may not necessarily make them completely happy, but they do understand that the reasons for it and why. We're trying to protect public access, usually to public lands, or we want to protect public access to a connector between two public roads, which are apparent and obvious.
I think that speaks to the greater vision that the county has, not in the sense that this is punitive to landowners who are trying to, protect their property. This is something that is over a period of many years. The statute contemplates a minimum of 10 years of use by the public before it could even be considered abandoned to public use. So there's certain steps that have to be taken, and like I said, the criteria that has been set up for the review of these types of roads is extensive. It considers many facts and histories, and again, this is all kind of joined together to support the public, so that public have access to what they historically have. And also, you noted the penalty associated with this. It's a progressive setup. The first steps, as we'll be talking about, are just a warning. We just want to talk to people, make sure they're aware of this ordinance and the state statute, and then it can progressively move up into a citation or a nuisance. So I think that the way that this has been built up is fair, measured, and not an attempt at being heavy-handed, but just to address the ongoing issues that we've experienced, if I've said that
I think so.
So, could
Yes,
you make the nutshell a little bit smaller? I'm fairly familiar with it, but even now I'm struggling to understand. Just in a nutshell, are we just trying to prevent public roads from being blocked off? Is that the fundamental?
Well, some of
problem that
them
you're trying
are
to
on
address?
private property, but people
Yes.
have. I mean, we have them
But
all
is that
over.
is that what you're going for with this?
Is that public roads by use shall be open to the public. and
Prescriptive
une-
easement is what
Right.
what we've always called them,
Right.
and I think that's in statute.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So
Prescriptive
legally,
easement.
there's different
Maybe that's
versions
from-
of that.
yeah.
There are prescriptive easements by use, and I think that's probably what you do with. I'm assuming with the ordinance is define different versions of what constitutes a public road, whether it was by plat or by use or by abandoned or by public use. Is that correct?
That's right. We're going to review all the situations, and I think the simple thing is to give you a couple of examples. This summer we had a property in which the southern boundary owner was advertising their property for sale and was telling potential buyers that they could access the property from the north end of the property. And Google had labeled that road for us. When we reviewed it and looked at it, it had historically always just gone to their property and ended on their property. So in our opinion, it was a driveway. It was a long driveway, but it was still a driveway, and it had no abandonment to public use. So the neighbor who was advertising that they could access that property from the north, we wrote them a letter and explained to them that that was a driveway controlled by the owner of the property, and that they had access on the south side from a public road that had been dedicated. So that was one case where our review process went through. Another case would be if someone had purchased a piece of property in which there was an old 2-track, just a simple dirt road passing through the property, and now they wanted to fence their property, and so they were fencing across the 2-track. The 2-track, from historical data, had been there for at least 10 years or more. We could see it on time-dated Google Earth, and it went to an SR 2477, either Forest Service or BLM, and it had a place to go.
Sorry, SR 2477. Could you just give us the
RS.
Oh, I'm sorry, RS.
Rural.
Yes, and explain just quickly what that is, so that because that's important to what you're presenting, and not everybody knows that acronym.
Right. I'll leave that to Sam.
I'm looking at Reed.
Well, I mean, I can say I just wanted to. We use a lot of acronyms around here, and
RS 2477 stands for Revised Statute 2477, which was legislation that created the law that, in conjunction, it happened about the same time as the end of the Taylor Grazing Act in the early 70s, when the government said all of the roads that exist out there on public land are not all public roads. There are roads that belong to the public on public land that can continue to be used, but there's a process at which you have to go through and establish them. So the county inventoried all those roads across the county at huge time and expense. The state has joined several times in lawsuits against the federal government and the BLM, and these are only on BLM, not forest. This is just properties on BLM that roads existed at some point in time for a period of time. It's unclear. We don't have as good a language in establishing what those roads are as we do the category that we're talking about now. But those are on public property, and we have them mapped on the county website. There's a map that shows all of the roads that we've inventoried and claim as public roads on BLM property. Some of those go from BLM to private to BLM to private and to a recreation area or a hunting area or an agricultural area, an old mine or something like that. And so where it crosses BLM, those are the RS 2477 roads that we are claiming, that we have claim to for public access to continue, that the BLM can't just come and close those roads off.
thank you.
But even the private property, if they go across and have access to those, they need to be open.
Well, and that's where this ordinance comes into place. This takes care of those gaps between BLM that goes across private to say, for however that public use was established, then we are categorizing those as public roads by use, and in this ordinance defining those, and as Rich explained, how we determine those, go through a process and have criteria and make a declaration from the county's perspective, and that's why we will claim those as public roads by use. And that's what this ordinance does, so that if someone comes and locks the gate on that road that's been there for a long time, we can have a process now to say, look, you can't lock that, here's why, and then with associated enforcement tools.
Okay, thank you, Reed.
Yep.
Can I ask something? One thing,
Mike, come up
on
to
up,
the mic,
Mike.
would you?
State your name.
See what you did.
Mike Worthen, one thing that's going on with the BLM RS 2477 roads is the state is in litigation right now to claim those as county
Public roads, yeah.
Yeah. And so that who knows how long that'll go on, but that is going on all the RS 247.
So to clarify, the state of Utah wants to make those.
The Attorney General
Exactly.
is
AG.
actually
Going through the
got,
Attorney
the
General
AG.
and all the counties in the state are involved in it, but it is in
My
litigation.
father-in-law and my husband has given two depositions for those roads, and they've had hundreds of people that have done those depositions on those roads.
Like Reed says, it was a tremendous effort.
On it.
Yep.
That's been going on, Reed Erickson again, that's been going on for at least 20 years, where we've been collecting data, affidavits, trying to show the established use, and that's for the BLM. This is the process now that we're saying, okay, we're going to do that on private lands. Here's how the process will be for us to declare those as public roads by use. That's a little different than a prescriptive easement, in that a prescriptive easement is a claim against a private property owner from another private property owner, not from the public. So the public is the interest we're representing, and that's why we have a formal process laid out by state law that we would go through in order to abandon the public's interest in a road, whether it be a public road by use or a platted road or a dedicated road or an easement or anything else through which process we acquire claim for the benefit of the public to that road. We would vacate our interest in that through a formal process. Otherwise, we assume that we have interest in that road. And so I think the county's position is clear, and it has been for a number of years, that the commission has always said our interest is preserving open roads through private and public lands that have historically been there for the benefit of the public.
Yeah.
Not to adversely possess property that hasn't been in the public interest, but to claim and preserve the accesses across private and public land that have provided public access over the given statutory requirement time frames, so that then we can claim those. And so our default position is they are public unless the county defaults to claim that they weren't ever established public, or we go through a process and vacate the public's interest in some of those roads that we've done from time
We've
to
done
time.
those, yeah.
But that's why this process is important to articulate those differences.
I like that you did a signage for those going across private. Do you want to talk about that a
Yes,
little bit?
and that's where the wording.
Cut you off halfway through your other explanation too. I didn't want to lose. You were talking about a private road accessed by an RS 2477 road.
Right.
I guess maybe we covered.
And that to us is just a strong indication that there is a public purpose and need when it goes to public lands. And when we're doing our review, we look to see if that's in fact the case, even if that's the end of the road past other private properties, and there is only a disagreement on one of the properties. We, just as Reed said, we have all these I guess jumps and skips.
Right.
And we don't want to leave a segment out. And what we've had as people have moved in and not understand Utah law,
Yeah.
they have recognized that they bought a plot of land and it's theirs. And we respect that. What we need to do, as Reed has so well explained, is make sure that the public who has an interest to get beyond their property is there. So let's scroll down and we'll look at that language. And that's what Mary Lee and I worked on Friday night and kept working on Friday night. Because the more I read it, the more I knew that there were places that didn't make any sense. So it's this is the definition. We also indicated that blockages, let's look at that 12.4 right there. And we explained what those could be, or any other thing that may block the public's access. All right? And then we talked about unauthorized signage, because a lot of times people will put signage up on their private property, which will face to the traffic and appear to also be including that roadway. And that was the thing I wanted to specifically address about the signage, was that your signage has to be posted in such a way as not to confuse or appear to include the roadway. So if we go down there, we'll see on 12.05 and 05-050, it's down further. So the forms of authorized signage. Signs shall be placed on public roads by use that notify members of the general public that a public road by use crosses over private land shall be placed no closer than 12 feet from the travelway and should be perpendicular to the travelway and should read. We specified the language. We didn't want to get a variance of a whole bunch of different things that might be less clear.
read.
We need to change that to perpendicular to the travelway.
No,
Parallel, I mean.
no.
Parallel to the travelway.
This
Not
is what
perpendicular to the travelway.
this is what we changed. This is the signage saying this road that you're on is a public road through private property. So that will be perpendicular to the travelway. If I were driving up to it, I can see it.
Oh,
That's
the
where
private property signs need to be parallel to the.
and that's further down. All other signage along the property shall be placed at the discretion of the property owner, but no closer than 12 feet from the travelway. And in instances where a sign is placed near an intersection or corner, the sign shall be placed no closer than 30 feet from the intersection or corner of the boundary, whichever distance is greater. All posted no trespassing signs shall be placed parallel to the road and no closer than 12 feet. And that was to,
Thank you.
that was that back and forth between Mary Lee and I Friday night. Was getting this wordage, so we weren't.
Might have to buy her lunch today.
Maybe I
Plan.
should. Yeah, I think the last sending she sent was around 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just giving you a hard time.
I know you are. But when I read the first drafts, it was too inclusive and not detailed enough to explain all the signage that would be and how that signage would be allowed and authorized. Such as if someone wants to have a birthday party. We don't want them not to be able to mark a birthday party here or a yard sale. But we also don't want it in the right-of-way. And notice that the right-of-way is from the travelway, because on a public road by use, they can be of varying sizes. Because
Yes.
maybe they're a 2-track, maybe they're a 4-track.
So a Dixie plate stapled to the tree is okay for a birthday party.
Yes, that's correct. Right. So, and then we get down to .060, which is the violations. And as Sam said, they're progressive. The first offense will be notified by
Written warning.
the first
Just
shall
a
notice in writing a warning issued to the offending party and recorded in the a record, just like we would record the sheriff's department giving a speed warning. It would still be recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a $300 penalty, up to $300 penalty for the second offense, and that's for those who are resisting cooperation. And the third, it would escalate to a more formal hearing. I always like to go through and ask people to come into compliance first before we get punitive. But we do have to sometimes let them know there is a stick.
Yeah.
We've
We didn't
extended
have
a
that
carrot.
before, and there was several times that we just couldn't get it done because there was no recourse. So
Right.
I think that's great that you put that in there.
Is there anything else in the ordinance that you might want to review or talk about?
I had several questions that I think you're going to be able to answer. Nothing you're doing supplants existing law,
Correct.
and you're not just clarifying existing law, right? There is purpose. You've got, this deciding what Iron County will do amongst the framework of the existing law.
That's right. Right. We didn't have a process before. We've specified the process for declaring a road public by use or public right of way.
And then I'm a little concerned just because if you declare it a public road by use, does the ordinance contemplate the procedure to close a road, or do you just defer to state law in which you go through the regular road vacation?
Correct.
And we would, even though we consider a road public by use, or for the purpose of this ordinance, we would define that road. Like if we were to come back here and say, listen, that's no longer a public road, we would go through the normal vacation process.
Correct. And the commission would be able to indicate their vacation of any public interest in that road.
Okay.
So it comes from our legislative body to say Iron County as a public has no interest in that road.
In fact, this helps to strengthen that vacating process, because it would provide the authority to vacate the road because it's been determined to be a public road and not an assumption of a public road.
Which we've
So-
had issue with before.
Right.
Oh,
If
wow.
we're
Is it
just
a
simply
public road or is it-
vacating
yeah.
something, somebody says, what are you vacating? How did you ever have a right to it? So if we can first establish that we had right as a public road and now we're vacating it, is actually a more complete open enclosure. Even if we were to come into here and somebody wanted a road vacated, we probably should go through this process to see if we even have any interest or authority to vacate the road, and that it's not. And this would be that first step.
Yeah.
We've now declared it is, and the next step, we have vacated it.
Well, and the good thing is there's a whole set of state code that governs the vacation of roads. The next concern I have is, have you contemplated the interplay between your ordinance and title law, title work, land title? So often with a title company, you're one of the things that you're paying for is some version of assurance that you have access to a property that you're buying. Is this going to? Sometimes I worry people give so much credence to what the county does that they'll say, well, listen, because of this, there is public access, and maybe that's appropriately so. I don't know. Like the first example you talked about. Is it in fact a public roadway, and should I be able to advertise such, being an adjacent landowner or something? Have you considered the interplay between your ordinance and what title companies do?
Yes. First thing that comes to mind is that, from an assessment perspective, sometimes a road is taken out of the property assessment. Sometimes it's not, depending on if it's...
The assessor's office will say this property has no access.
Correct.
Is that what you're getting at?
Well, no, I was talking about just strictly for assessment purposes.
Dedicated versus non-dedicated.
Right.
Okay.
And then as far as, I don't know if we specifically spoke about this, but it certainly crossed my mind as we were discussing it, that this is for access purposes, and people should not rely on this for deeding, platting, holding out to other people that they have.
Access, but not necessarily legal access.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Right. The title company shouldn't be saying the county's now assumed a dedicated access.
That would suggest a defined boundary, and that's not always the case. This is a case-by-case basis. It's fact-intensive. We are advocating for access to the public and keeping that road open, not setting how far wide it is, just strictly where it runs through to the point that it should be left open. But as far as advocating for how large the right-of-way should be, I think that's where our intent with this ordinance ends. But feel free to speak otherwise if you disagree, gentlemen.
I would never disagree with Sam.
Sam?
I would add
to that, in clarification to your question, that there's nothing in this ordinance that would allow someone to imply that because of this ordinance now that I have legal access to my property, personal access to access my property that I didn't have before.
Well, I just wonder if like this ordinance will make it into somebody's title report and say, well,
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's nothing in here that would provide somebody the ability to say, now I have access to this property where I didn't before. And they would not be able to claim that. All we're trying to do is articulate what the law allows for and to set this process of being able to enforce those things, which we didn't really have a method to do.
Well, so let me
this
push
does
back-
not provide private access to somebody's private property across someone else's property to gain access to their property. But if there was a road there that was a public road that had public benefit, not just to one individual property owner, then that's what we're asserting, that we would retain interest for the benefit of the public.
so if I can, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but like you go back to the example of public, private, and I live down here on, this private, and it's time to sell my property. And I access it that way. I mean, are we saying that we're going to call this a public road, but really for a private thing, for a title company, they're going to almost have to say prescriptive use
That's correct.
over the private parts?
This does not ensure them legal access to private property
Or I'm going to have to go acquire specific
because these
expressed
are
easements.
public benefits to the public good that show a public interest, not a private interest to an individual property.
I really appreciate that clarification. And then my last
Do you agree?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
question, and I apologize to take so much
I
time.
was going to say, they may perhaps reference in their title that there is a county process in which they'd have to go through, but they would have to come through the county process rather than having it written in that documentation that they have legal county access.
Well, and I think from a title searcher's perspective, if I can say, look, these are public sections of road, and I have acquired easements, or I can assert, a prescriptive easement over the private sections, then I feel like I can say, yes, this property has legal access.
And I've heard that before too, John, and I'm glad you actually brought it up because I've had people come into my office in the last year, and a mortgage company has said, you don't have a legal access to your property.
Right.
Well, one of them was completely wrong because it was dedicated. The other one was a road that had been in place for over 30 years and bypassed that property. It was not just to that property, but it was a notorious road or two-track. And in both cases, they said, what can you do? And I said, I'm not going to be your lawyer. You need to contact your lawyer, and they will contact us for a determination.
Yeah. Well, in the long history of title searchers and underwriters, this will get litigated amongst those over and over, and it didn't start here and it won't end here. But I appreciate, there's no way to predict exactly how they'll treat this, if it will change anything for them, but I appreciate the contemplation of it, because
I think it'll be very helpful for
Yes.
the public to.
and that's
to
part of the reason I brought it
understand
up, is I think it bolsters the notion that this is a public right of way. Even if it bounces back and forth and they've got to do their own thing for the private parts, private sections, I should stop saying it like that. And then finally, the one concern, one more concern that I've got is there a version of this, Sam, that leaves the county liable for maintenance if we claim such roadways?
No.
We discussed that.
Okay.
And we talked this over with Bruce as well, because that was his
have
concern.
many roads in the county that we do not, that we have easements on, but we don't maintain.
And that's often a raised question again to my office. I'll get something out in our far reaches that say, when's the county going to grade this road? Right. And unfortunately, I say never until you build it up, a community out there that benefits a larger...
Up to the county standards.
Exactly, and bring it to county standards.
Well, I appreciate all those answers. I thought, man, I wanted to bring out some of those points, because I think there was some potential, if depending on how it's written, that we could get ourselves in trouble. But I appreciate all the great answers.
Thank you for bringing that out, John, because again, our hope is to keep this fairly limited in scope. We have just this small cross section of land use issues that come up, and we've had nothing that we could use to address them before. So this is our hope, is to take that.
Oftentimes I'm asked this question, well, this is private property. Why can't I stop the access of the public? And my response is, it is private and a private road, but it is regulated by the county because we have a public interest to keep the access open. We do not own it, we do not maintain it, but we do have an obligation to regulate it.
I wonder too.
Well, no, my
No.
point was they make a comment that it's private property.
Yeah, not
Right,
not
right.
a private road.
And
Did
could
I
you,
say that? I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
It's not a
so
private
for
road.
clarification for the public, could you clarify the difference between what you're talking about here and say like Holt Road in Enterprise, where it's or in the Newcastle Valley,
Hart.
which valley? The valley out west. Thank you, the
Escalante
Escalante Valley.
Valley.
And that's a private road, and so on occasion they'll actually block it off to assert that this is a private roadway. Like there are some legal parts to that, and I want to clarify the difference between that and what you're talking about.
Right, and we've talked to Mr. Holt, and he built or had constructed a road that would serve his purposes, and he asked our office, remember this last spring, and we told him that he should gate it and post it at least once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that would interrupt the tenure of continuum, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Is that correct, Sam? So this happens. People don't realize that they have to have done something and they need to document it because time
I
goes
closed off on
on.
December 24th.
Well, but
or
time
whatever.
goes on. 30 years later,
All of a sudden you have
nobody remembers.
shade of prescriptive
Grandpa
use.
died,
Yeah.
and there's somebody forgot for 10 years to do something, and it falls into the public sector at that point.
One other thing, if I could bring up, I won't speak for the sheriff's office, but one of the things we contemplated was how do property owners feel when they have public coming across their private land? Am I liable? And that's the need for the language where we said you need to stay on the public road. As soon as you venture off of this historic road, you're on private property.
Trespassing.
And you are trespassing. And so one of the things in speaking with the sheriff was that we would hope that they would help us with that enforcement because we're not granting license for people to go onto other people's property at all. It's merely to keep that road open for access only. Don't loiter, don't linger. And again, we'll point out to the sheriff that they would be trespassing once they left the roadway.
Yeah, if you'll scroll down, you'll see the specific language. It's 12.05, right there. Analysis. This is a public road that crosses private property. Do not leave the road. Do not trespass on private property on either side of the road.
And the punitive parts are for the landowners here. The trespassing would be under the regular trespassing laws.
Yes.
I would only add to the comment, an explanation, that also their liability on the road is exempt by state law, that when the public road goes across private property, they're not liable for what actually transpires on that public road. And so a lot of them say, well, I want to close it off because I don't want the liability. Well, the liability, they're exempt from that liability when it's a public road on private property if it occurs on the private road. And that's why we have the trespass on the public road.
Yeah.
Did I say
Yeah.
private road?
Look what you did to me. Look what you did to me.
So if I'm in my side-by-side and crash and die,
Then it's not the
you're not
private
liable as a
property.
property owner.
Yeah.
Because it's on his property.
If I'm on my side-by-side, leave the roadway and try to climb a rock and crash and die, I'm now trespassing and there's no liability. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
You have a higher obligation of proof at that point that you were
Licensed to be on the
acting within the law. Now, there is one thing more, and I don't know, I would like to see that when a gate is up and someone comes upon it, that we respect that and close it behind ourselves, because that's part of the good behavior of those who will use those those gated.
We get that a lot on our on our property, and then all of our cows are out. I was just going to bring that up for clarification. On these open roads that people go across, if you can put a gate, just not to lock it. You just can't lock it, but you can put a gate up because a lot of times they're pastures for cattle or whatever. And we had one, our neighbor decided that he was just going to put a new gate in or whatever and just opened it all up and left it.
Oh.
Well, he didn't see any cattle there right now, but we had some cattle up in the next pasture and they came down and got out. So that can really happen.
And that can be frightening if you're traveling on a road that the cows have gotten out on. And I came around a corner coming down from Bryan Head the other night, and some cattle had. I saw one lone cow off the side of the road, and it was dark, and that would have been something.
It
that
was
you
probably a
wouldn't wanna
black cow.
Oh, geez.
It was black. but getting back to that too, it may be nice if the signage on the gate were stipulated as well that says this is a gated road and must be maintained as gated, but is not locked. And
Yeah.
just notifying the public that
We've
it's
got hundreds of gates on our ranch.
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't put a gate on, but you would just hope that people would leave it open if it's open, close it if it's.
what I'm referring to, Commissioner, is sometimes it will be gated in such a manner it appears to have a locked padlock. And I think it's sufficient to just simply be bound closed to keep the cow out.
Yeah.
He doesn't know the combination. He doesn't recognize.
Yeah, we can't have those locked.
He doesn't have
Right.
They're
thumbs.
through roads.
And even if the lock is hanging loose, it may not be. Somebody may come to the conclusion that this is a private road, and that's why all this signage is helpful.
Yeah.
Is to let both parties know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I want to make it very clear that nowhere in here are we stipulating the width or the right of the public's access beyond what is obvious and apparent.
Yeah.
Meaning, when you
Two-track
drive a
road is a
two-track,
two-track
there's not
road.
going to be any grass.
So did you feel
goes
the
up
need
well.
to talk about, open range or fence out and fence in rules, or didn't want to get into that with this ordinance?
We did not. We wanted to just keep it very specific and simple. There's a myriad of ways in which this can either be violated or not, and I think it was the Apostle Paul that said there are diverse ways. I will not mention them all. What did he say? There's a multitude of ways to commit sin. I won't mention them all.
Yes.
And this isn't sin. This is simply recognizing that both the public and the landowner have a respect for one another.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great ordinance, and I think that, with all of the different instances that we've had, I'm glad that we've got that clarification. So.
It has been on my mind since I think it was probably the second week I started this job,
so.
and somebody came in and wanted to know. And there's been some interesting comments made. I found that at times people have gone and asked, innocently enough, and asked who they thought had the ability to answer the question. A deputy, a member of the road crew, appears to be a road, and they've been given an answer that was less than accurate.
Yeah.
But this is a good process. Like Rich pointed out earlier, there are multiple instances where we found that there is not a public road or a public access point. So it's not rubber stamped.
Yeah,
It's a good process.
exactly.
They review everything, and I mean everything. There's a huge criteria list. So
Yeah.
it's a good process.
And there are some roads out there that, and part of me just scratches my head and asks, did I even want to really tackle this? Because we know of some public roads that are blocked, and they've been blocked for a number of years, but they need to be reopened. I was talking to the fire chief in Paraguna. He's got a couple of roads that
That are,
they've got a gate on them, but they lead right to state lands.
yeah, yeah.
And it makes him and his department have difficulty rescuing. He told me specifically of an incident where they couldn't, they weren't able to get up there as quickly as they would have liked to
Yeah.
for a rescue operation.
To rescue people, or to go in and get cattle out of somebody else's property or that type of thing. I know that we've
Sure.
had
That's a
that
two-way.
issue
That's a
too.
two-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got cattle grazing in my yard. I can't get into your yard.
Hard to get them.
Yeah.
So we need a public hearing, right? Yeah. So I'll open a public hearing and let's go ahead with that part of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any? State your name, please.
My name, please. My name's William Pressgrove. The problem that I see with what's going on with this ordinance is the fact that the county is saying because the public has been using this road for X amount of time, now the property owner has no jurisdiction over that road, over that piece of his property. John brought up some things that I think are very pertinent about maintenance. You're not going to maintain it, so you got what? They got 12 feet on either side where they can put their signs up and say you don't get off of this, or you're on private. You can be trespassing. Okay, now, I've been up on the mountain, and there, granted, it's a designated county road, but in that specific area, the road ruts so bad that people start going out this side and to get around the rut, and then they go out this side to get around the rut. So if nobody's responsible except that property owner for the maintenance, then people could end up violating the ordinance because they have to get around the ruts or there's no access. That's one of the things that I see. The other thing that I see is damage to the property. I know darn well that there are people that don't pick up their beer cans and stuff after they've thrown them out, and they could be going across this private property, public access, and they trash it. Who's responsible for cleaning the trash up? The county says, hey, we have authority over this property. It may be a private, person's private property, but we have authority over it, and we can fine them if they tell people they can't go use this. But then, cui bono? The public, benefits, but the private property owner doesn't benefit because he's the one that has to clean up the garbage and stuff that goes through there. To me, because of the fact that the county is taking responsibility to keep that open for the public, then it's either they should pay the property owner for the use of that, or go through the process of eminent domain and pay him for that and then take it. But you can't sit there and have your cake and eat it too and tell the public that they can go through people's property without being the county being responsible for either cleaning it up or maintaining it to the point where they don't have to go off to the sides around a rutted road. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And this thing is telling the people that own that property that if you don't do it our way on your property, then we'll fine you. That's not right. Those people have a right to their property, and it should either be paid for keeping it clean or keeping the ruts out of it so they don't have to go around and get onto the private property or whatever. But this thing doesn't address those issues. Those issues need to be addressed. You can't tell a person, oh, it's your property, but I'm going to tell you what you can and can't do with it. Then it's not private property anymore. It's public. And the county says, because it's public, we have jurisdiction over it. I know you've got roads that go through your property and stuff like that. Do you maintain the ruts?
Yes, we do.
Exactly.
Yep.
And does it take money to clean those
And
ruts
I
up?
understand the process, that's the way that the ordinance should be, because there's checkerboards down through most of the property with state sections, BLM, and they have to have access to that.
Understood.
And so
But it's
I don't
not-
have a
it should-
problem with it, but
It should not be the property owner's responsibility to take care of those ruts, because it's public use, not necessarily their private use.
we cuss them, but we still take care of them and grade them.
But
But
you,
yeah, I get
you
it.
know,
Yeah.
there should be some sort of a maintenance fee that the county pays those people so that they can maintain this public use road, because it's going across their private property. Thank you.
Hi, Darrell Owen, a resident here in Iron County. Have a number of pieces of property here. I disagree with the previous speaker. I'm in a circumstance where we have a public easement. The county has determined it to be a public easement, and it goes back into my property as well, and into the BLM area. There's topo maps showing back to 1971, that being a public road, and where the landowner has blocked it off. The county has sent the landowner numerous letters. He's ignored them. I'll share this with you later. Has stated a number of times, this is a county road. The landowner has ignored them, and even presented even the state has determined it to be a county road. It's on their maps as well. And I'll provide all this to you. My point is I'm not sure what the previous speaker's name is. He's wrong. What happens is people, when the public blocks, or when a landowner blocks off public access to other lands, they just find another way. It's not a case of they just say, instead of going here, I'll create another avenue. And that's what's happened on my property as well. So this rut stuff is really a problem of a temporary problem, right? Where another road might pop up going around this gated area that's not supposed to be gated, and create another nuisance and really an environmental hazard as well. So now I'm in a circumstance where my property has tracks all over it because people are trying to access that public lands behind me, but they can't go take Jackrabbit Ridge Road, the county road that's been determined to be a county road. So this is a good ordinance. It protects me as a landowner, and it protects the public. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And do you want to come up again, Richard? Want to address any of that?
Well, I appreciate what you said about that. One thing is we need to clarify that we have taken a process to administer state law. We have not created state law. The state law is there. It already says that these are public roads by use. So we have taken an ability to administer that responsibility. We are not creating any laws. The ordinance is there to enable us to administer state law. Would you agree with that, Sam?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I do appreciate what you're saying about the maintenance issue and the costs of where we suddenly find ourselves in a situation where we have a big pothole and people have begin to drive around it and they create it. I'd like to address the 12 feet setback is a safety issue. We just want room enough where the signage on the road does not become so close to the road. I have people who are not happy with this state law, and they would, in essence, want to put obstructions almost immediately on the edge of the travelway, which becomes a difficult thing to maneuver if you're the public. It's not been there before, it's not been restricted. So the purpose of the 12 feet was never to take more property. It was simply to provide a safety for the public. Now, when it comes to potholes and other wear issues, the county just doesn't have neither the money nor the time to hit every road that we have some responsibility for. So we have probably 75% of our roads are not maintained, but we still administer and regulate them. And as for the potholes and other difficulties that arise on these roads, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, those who use the road have the right to improve them to make safe passage. So whether that's the landowner or the folks who are using the road, they also have a right to maintain that. And so I would recommend or suggest, and I know that sometimes this isn't possible because there's so many people may use the road, that at those potholes where the ordinance says or other signage, it is within the rights of the property owner to speak to that issue. That this pothole is, if you don't like the pothole, feel free to bring a load of material back and fill it.
Put it in.
Because again,
Or throw a shovel in the back of your truck. I mean, it's
right. Or to explain that, you're restricted to the pothole.
well, and I think it's important to clarify the difference between maintenance and what you're trying to accomplish with the ordinances, which is to try to ensure, historical access. It's no different than all the RS 2477 work that was done. Mm-hmm. It's no different than, the road system that we have. It's just clarifying, and I mean,
By
and
the
so
way,
it has.
most of those are not maintained either.
Right. Well, that's my point. Is
Yeah.
the
Any of the BLM or
the
Forest
question of
Service
maintenance
roads.
isn't contemplated by the ordinance. It has more to do with access.
Yeah.
That's right, and that's right. And, and I appreciate what's been said on this side because that issue has arisen where someone who has had, or their previous owner had historical access to their own property through a public road and now has been blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And so
we have
without
many
any
examples.
Many examples of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So both are there. So I know that's not necessarily totally satisfactory, but again, this was an ordinance for access, not to deal with all the, as I said before, there's a myriad ways to, or multiple different cases, and that's why we take them, as Sam said, one at a time.
Yeah.
One at a time. Yep.
Could you come up to the mic?
I was not making reference to any road that was blocked off by a gate or whatever. I was talking about the roads that go through
Mm-hmm.
and they get rutted, and the people start going around the ruts, and they damage the property on both sides beyond the 12-foot safety
Yeah.
for the signs and
They
stuff
have
like that.
ability to go ahead and fix that. If that was my access to my house, I would go ahead and
But
fix that. so
we're
that
not
I
talking. We're
have
not
to go
talking
through it.
access to somebody's house. We're talking access to a hunting area, other BLM land, or some,
Yeah, yeah.
stuff like that. I did not make any reference to people bypassing a road and going onto somebody else's property and making their own road, which he could fence off, and they wouldn't be allowed to do that anyway because it's not public use property. So I was just referring to the roads that are already open, and they need to be maintained for the public. If the county says the public can use it, then either they need to tell the public, if you want it fixed, you fix it yourself, or they pay the property owner stipend to fix the road so that it can be used.
And to that point, Mr. Pressgrove, I think that hopefully these roads are not being used so frequently that becomes an issue. But we'd also, Rich may not like it, but we'd invite you to visit with the engineer's office and discuss this so that we can the county's not saying, here you go, this is it. We're still going to be hands-on in terms of assessing these on a case-by-case basis.
But right now, I don't have any of those roads. I've got a piece of property back there that I'm paying taxes on that is landlocked, okay? There's no access to it except across my property or my neighbor's property. And so I don't have an issue as far as my property is concerned. I'm concerned about other people's property.
Thank you.
I'm not sure why I want to weigh in on this, but maybe I should.
Go ahead, though.
I sympathize with Mr. Pressgrove's concern on the maintenance as an issue, and I just wanted to point out that one of the things that the road department has done in cases, on a case-by-case basis, even though we don't accept maintenance responsibility on a lot of these roads, we have worked with the property owner, and if the property owner has a continued problem and it's getting a lot of traffic, that the county can and has helped in those cases. They've put in cattle guards, for example, where there was a gate issue, and they've said we'll provide the culvert if you'll put it in, or vice versa. And
We
the county
do
has
that all
worked
the time.
together on those things and tries to compensate in that way. It's never going to be enough, and I recognize that. But but the county, I think, I agree with you in that the county should try to help in those kinds of situations where there is a continual problem.
On the other hand, in front of my place,
We don't totally disregard your property. You do not count.
the road that is maintained maybe once,
Yeah.
possibly twice a year, they grade off the road and try to make the road smooth, but then the hump that is left doesn't allow the water to go into the ditch. It runs down the side of the road. So I've taken my box blade and my straight blade, and I've gone out there and smoothed this out so that the water could get to the proper drainage. and
Thank
stuff
you,
like that.
Bill.
So
That's awesome.
that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
That's-
We need more
I was
people
just-
to do that type
that's
of
very
thing.
helpful. And
It's very helpful.
sometimes, county maintaining a road isn't always the best thing. Try to do what they can, but it's a challenge, that's for sure.
It is.
That's on the other side
Point
of the coin.
well
Okay.
taken.
And that's why, Mr. Pressgrove, I said that they can put additional signage up that reminds people that this bog is the legal access.
This bog is the road.
That's right.
That's
and,
right.
And if you would
Stay
like,
in the bog.
you know, it is a tough question, and it's all about funding, and it's all about all of us working together, and sometimes they don't, and that's very disappointing. It's just like when they leave a gate open. It's like when they throw litter and trash out. Those are things we can't control, but certainly we appreciate that a lot of landowners, though they can become frustrated, are still recognizing that this is a
Public road.
community working together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they could have a sign up there by the county that says, "Feel free to maintain this road as you use it."
Exactly.
They
That'd
can.
be great.
That's another one of those authorized signs.
Okay. Oh, one more.
Sorry, Darrell Owen again. I just want to make it clear that the road that is in question, part of it travels on my property as well. So I've maintained a 33-foot
part.
wide access so that the people can continue on past my property and access those public lands. It's the landowner in front of me that has not, that has chosen to disregard basically the county's rulings. So that's why we need this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, we've probably beat that dead horse for a long time today. So, can I get a?
We need to close the
one
public
more.
We've only spent a moment on it
Did I
compared to the months I've spent.
close it, didn't I? Did I close the public hearing?
Did we close
Yeah,
it?
you
I
did.
closed
Okay.
it, yeah. But then we went on and on.
Oh, great.
We didn't stop talking. but-
Oh, it was close. Okay. I got you.
So let's have a motion, I would believe.
I would move for approval of the ordinance 22-7, which modifies chapter 12.04 of the county roads generally, and add chapter 12.05 public roads use, as presented by Rich and Sam, and appreciated comments from the public.
I would second that. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. We will go on to public. What? It's approved, yeah.
Yeah, but you said move to second it instead of move to approve.
I said.
No, she because Commissioner Cousins isn't here, she made the second and then called for a motion and then they voted. Did they not?
Yeah.
Yes, they did, but the verbiage that was used was approved in both. The second, she said approved
Aye.
as the second, and then instead of saying.
Approved. Motion and.
Oh, it's okay.
I should have said motion and second. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Done. Got it.
Okay. Are we going to do public comments first, real quick? 3-minute public comments.
That's agenda item number 3 after an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So do we have any public comments after all that? Nope. Oh, we do have one. Come on up.
Public.
My name is William Pressgrove, and I guess the comment that I have is not necessarily something that the commission can do as a commission, but is something that needs to be done in order for the county to be able to enforce rules and regulations that are right, not things that are done just because there's a law or a rule out there. Not every rule, not every law that is placed is right. A prime example is the Utah Constitution, and I really get upset with the legislators because they have changed verbiage in the Constitution to the woke people so that it does not, the first section does not read, all men have the inherent and inalienable right to acquire, possess, and protect their property. Now it says all persons. The woke business did not go through, and I did not get to vote on it as a change to the Constitution. So that's a problem there. But the problem is that many of the rules that are put into place negate the first section, the article, the first section, first clause of the Constitution, where it says that all men have the inherent and inalienable right to acquire, possess, and protect property. Okay? The things that have been put into place as rules and laws violate that inalienable right. And if the Iron County doesn't stand up and say, hey, look, we need to either change this so that it says that you do not have an inalienable right, or we have to change the rules so that they fit that inalienable right. It's problematic when, and Sam will probably attest to this, it's problematic when people come and they say, well, you're saying that I can't do this and I can't do this and I can't do this, but the Constitution says I have an inalienable right to acquire, possess, and protect my property. You see? So that's something that needs to be addressed, and if the county doesn't address it to the legislature and it leaves it up to the individuals to do it, then because of the fact that 95% of the people in this state have never read the Utah Constitution and they don't have a clue as to what's in it and what protects their rights, people aren't going to do it.
Oh, 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, and again, I just want to say thank you, first of all. This is a great step forward in protecting those rights as for people, for protecting the community, for protecting public lands, for giving access to public lands, so that the community knows that these roads, these historic roads that have been used for years, sometimes even longer, decades, will let them have access to these public lands that for everyone. Hunters, the people that want to fish, the people that want to ATV ride. It was a step in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more comments? Okay, we'll move on to 4, discussion and possible approval of the amended minor subdivision for Benjamin Jessup to be retitled as amended Lot 8A and 8B Meadows Ranch subdivision located, there's the description in the.
Thank you, Commission. This is an application mostly clerical in nature. It is only, there's nothing that changes on the plat other than the title. And the title, as you can see, says amended minor subdivision to be retitled as amended Lot A and B Meadows Ranch subdivision. The purpose for that, this is, first orient you, this is a property just located out off of 5700 West, just east of Quichapa, on property that's zoned RA20. This is SUU Farm over here, and over here. 800 West comes down like this, drops down to 600 right here. 600. 800 drops down, and then this is 600 right here. So on the corner of 600 and 5700, this property right here had been re-subdivided into a minor subdivision, broken of 40 acre into 20 acre parcels by this subdivision called the minor subdivision for Benjamin Jessup. But when they went to Meadows Ranch Subdivision Water Company to get their hookups for this, they said, you don't belong to this subdivision because you're a separate minor subdivision. And so they're simply changing the name of this lot A and B to be called amended lots A and B Meadows Ranch subdivision, so that they will allow them to hook up to the water. That's all that this is about. Okay. There's no public hearing. We did send letters out, but there's no, and I don't know if there's anyone here to comment on that, but otherwise it is in compliance and just requires an action of the county commission to determine whether you feel that that's in the best interest of the public to make that name change for the subdivision.
Have a motion.
All right, I would move for approval of the amended minor subdivision for Benjamin Jessup to be retitled as amended Lot 8A and 8B Meadows Ranch subdivision, located in the legal description as provided in the agenda. A note that this is appraiser parcel numbers E209-8A and E-209-8B.
Second, and moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Could we bother you just long enough to get a signature on that? And Sam left, but thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks. Okay, let's go on to 5. Discussion and possible approval for an OHV grant from the state of Utah to purchase a trail dozer and OHV trail supplies and materials. Mike Worthen.
Mike Worthen with the Iron County Natural Resource Department. This grant is with the Office of Recreation, of Outdoor Recreation. It's an OHV recreation grant, and it is to purchase a trail dozer for trail maintenance purposes, and also supplies and equipment to maintain the trails, such as markers, a couple of kiosks, I think, and so forth. The grant is for $131,000, a little over $131,000. That is the total project, and what we're asking from the grant is $90,000, and that will be to purchase the trail dozer, and then the Tourism Bureau has agreed to put in $10,000 off of next year's funds to help with that.
I noticed that there was a somewhat matching, and that's where that's going to come from.
Yes,
It's from Tourism
yes,
Daughter.
Maria has agreed
Great.
to do that. And then the other part of matching is my salary, which is a contract, so it can go against that. And then some miscellaneous use on the Forest Service and the BLM. When they use it, they will count their time that they use it for on the match also.
Very good.
Okay.
Great. I guess we can call for a motion.
Okay, I would move for approval for an OHV grant from the state of Utah to purchase a trail dozer and OHV trail supplies and materials as presented by Mike.
Seconded. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Passed.
Commissioner, the
I need to.
signage on that, I'll send you a link. They want to do a electronic signature, so I'll send you the link to that agreement, and then you can sign it, and then it'll go
Okay.
back to them, and they'll sign it, and then it'll come back to us as finalized.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to number 6, Resolution 2022-11, a resolution to support and participate in the Utah Satellite Port Coalition. I guess I can talk to that for a second. I'll let you talk to it too. But we felt like we needed a resolution from all the Washington County has already done their resolution, and we just felt like that we needed to do that in support of what's going on with the port.
Perfect.
Is that it?
That's it. Yeah. This is
Okay.
something that we've I
Talked
kind of
about for a long time.
kind of
and
mentioned
we
it
just
in
need
my
to-
comments this morning, but we work really closely together with the surrounding counties, with public partnerships, with industry, and we have a coalition that has come together to talk about those issues and make sure that we're well represented
it.
across the board. So
Yep.
I'd move for approval of Resolution 2022-11 to support and participate in the Utah Satellite Port Coalition.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes. Let's go to number 7, Resolution 2022-12, a resolution concerning the elimination of a full-time justice court judge position and the amended of a second part-time justice court judge position to full-time status.
Thank you.
Oh, Jennifer,
I just snuck
there
right
she is.
Yes, with the notification of Judge Miller's upcoming retirement, which will be in the first part of January 2023, we've addressed the future needs for Iron County, and I first wanted to congratulate Judge Miller and her for nearly 5-decade run as our Iron County Justice Court judge. Her dedication to Iron County is unprecedented, and we're so appreciative of her service. So. And I'll tell her that in person, too. The proposal for your consideration is to eliminate Judge Miller's full-time position upon her retirement and amending the part-time position held by Judge Dunlap to a full-time position beginning the first pay period of January. At a future date, I'll also propose a resolution for temporary judge position in the event of Judge Dunlap's absence, like on vacations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
it shouldn't be anticipated for much throughout the year, but it's good to have kind of a stepping stone in place as well.
I'd like to thank for that service also. Margaret's just been awesome, and that's a long time to be
know.
in that position. I remember when she was at the old courthouse.
Right.
Down that little lane where the parking garage is now. But I'd like to thank her, Judge Miller. She's done a great job all those years.
So, Jen, on have we looked at like caseload? Is it going to be?
That's
Challenge
what
or-
we've anticipated at this time going forward, and it may change throughout the years. We don't know, but that's kind of
But
just
right now,
the direction we're taking right now.
And Jennifer did consult with the AOC, I believe, to kind of help evaluate that, if I'm not mistaken. I could be
Yeah,
mistaken.
right. And we've been involved.
We've
We've had
had
a lot of conversations
conversations, yeah.
between Sam and Jen and
Yeah.
the AOC and the commission.
And the Justice Court may even change more if they do what the legislature is
just never
talking.
know.
We don't know. So.
Yeah.
But at this time, we feel like that's adequate.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was my only concern: is are we going to leave ourselves in a situation where it's adequate? We've made that
We
determination.
hope so.
Yeah.
We hope we're okay.
We hope
yeah.
we're okay. Anyway, let's have a motion, shall we?
Okay, I'm going to move to approve Resolution 22-12 concerning the elimination of full-time Justice Court judge position and the amendment of a second part-time Justice Court judge position to full-time status.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passed. Thanks, Jen. Discussion and possible approval of an interlocal
We'll get
indemnification
We'll get a
encroachment
we don't have that.
agreement between Enix City and Iron County. Is Rich Wilson still here?
I sure hope so.
Where did he go?
That's a mouthful.
He's out in the hall. But the commission's already visited this
I can
before.
speak to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Go ahead, Sam.
No, I was just going to say you visited this before with the water district. This is essentially the same agreement. It's just been amended to speak to Enix City, and it's been reviewed by Rob Dotson, their city manager, and
No substantive changes.
No, not
from
that I can
from what
recall,
was with the
Rich.
water board, and Rob Dotson, the Enix City manager, let me know this morning that
Harry showed up
that
just
they
in
have-
time again.
they've mailed their executed copy to us.
I was looking
We
for
should have it.
somebody. It is. I talked to Canaraville, and they've approved it. We did have to make one language change because we were very specific about a specific road, and we didn't want that specificity in it. But again, it's back to just cooperation. I cannot see any reason to hold a bond from a municipality or a municipality type of entity. It's not going to change. Canaraville just want to know if it would change it, have a tax implication. It has no tax implication. It just means that we don't need to have them either hold out bond, pay for an insurance, get a letter of credit. We
just
accept
need
that.
to get along together and do it together.
Yeah, let's
Yep.
work together.
Work together. Yep.
And they still will need a permit because that permit to encroach doubles as an easement. That's the way I see it. I've given you permission to do it, so I've basically given you a prescriptive easement.
We do a lot of encroachments as a county and not very many easements.
Correct. Much easier to do a one-step process. And even private owners get their encroachment permit, which serves now as their easement for their public utility to their property across ours.
Very good.
Okay. Not all the towns have responded yet, but you talked to Rob this morning. The water district is on board. Canaraville's on board. So
Okay.
we'll take them as we get them.
Okay. Very good. We have a motion.
I'll move for approval of an interlocal indemnification encroachment agreement between Enix City and Iron County.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will convene as the Board of Equalization, review and approval of veterans, circuit breaker, low income, and
Thank you.
blind tax abatement for 2022 tax year, August.
So I sent you guys an email. I hope you got a chance to check it out. But these are just your numbers grouped in the whole, so you have a basic idea. So I've included last year's, also the second page, just so you kind of have a basic idea of where we're at. But for this year, it looks like our total tax relief.
Oh, hey, August, could you just pull that microphone down?
Oh,
The
sorry.
folks online won't be able to hear you.
Gosh, dang it. you
I
guys
know.
are-
Sorry.
Okay, so the total tax relief this year will be $1,151,173.99. Now that's a lot.
That is a lot.
But when you break it down, you guys can kind of see here. Our blind is $949.89, which is not too many. We have about 10 of those. The circuit breaker is $188,645.50. The county is $110,823.05. The market circuit breaker, which is a portion of the circuit breaker, but the county's portion, is $126,014.60. And then we have just a few of the smaller. Our big ones are veterans, which it comes in at $723,713.76. That's a big one, but thank goodness that we're allowed to do it. Our veterans went up. We had over 56 new veterans this year, and we lost quite a few veterans sold their homes. So we picked, we really had a lot more new ones than even that. We picked up a lot. I'm not sure if just word of mouth, but we picked up a lot, which is great. I'll be honest, I've had more late abatements in the last 2 weeks since the tax bill went out than any year, and it's not over. They have one more week. They have till November 1st. That's our absolute
This inflation
done deal.
has
But
done
we've had
probably
a lot,
this too.
of people, our elderly,
A lot of folks
that
didn't
needed help.
realize what was happening when they saw their valuation notice and
Yes.
when it's
And
the
I've
tax
even
bill.
asked, like, why now? And their bill's huge, so they're reading it, which is part of what happens. But I'm like, why have you not applied all these years? Well, they didn't really look, which also is good to me that they could pay it these years and they were fine and took care of
Yeah,
it. They
yeah.
just can't at
But,
this point.
but
and
now you
they're-
can't.
We have had
Nice
a
that we can
big
do that for
increase.
them.
Right.
Yeah.
We've sold a ton of homes, which is crazy to me. So basically, that's just kind of where our numbers are at. I will present again in December with all the late. And like I said, I think we'll have a pretty good amount at that point. But even compared to last year, we're, how much? Over 100,000 in our.
And just remember, we've only got the one meeting in December, so you'll want
Yes,
to.
and I'll make sure to get it. And then just so you know, the yellow, that yellow square, that is this portion the state refunds us. So the circuit breaker portion. So then you'll have an idea of that too. So
Nice.
basically that's, just about it. I just want to make sure you guys know where we're at and you're.
I did want to
Moving.
say I had a lady call to complain about her taxes, and I said, and she kept saying I'm a widow, and I said, well, come to the courthouse and see if there's, well, I don't know, I don't want to take any help, and I said, well, if you need it. She said, well, I don't need it. I just wanted to complain.
I just want to tell you that I don't like it. I've actually had a
makes
few
you
of
feel
those too. Yeah, we've had a few of those. I've had a lot of phone calls on this the last week or two.
Oh,
And
yeah.
some people want to come and we're here and that's what we need to do. Some
Yeah.
people just want to complain.
Yeah,
But that's okay too.
that's okay.
I don't like mine either.
Yeah, who does?
So anyways, that's this year's numbers so far. I'll-
One
Okay.
thing that I think is helpful, because I've had some complaints too, and is the pie chart.
Yeah, that
It
was
is nice.
really
The pie chart.
Nicole.
Has
That was
been helpful.
nice to put that on there.
It is
Yeah,
nice. And it's
very good.
When I was complaining about my own, I was pointing at the pie chart.
Yeah,
because people don't understand. and
schools.
haven't. Yeah, exactly.
Schools went up.
I have people be like, well, I don't have kids in school here. Do I have to pay that?
Yeah, that was the other thing the lady said was, I don't have schools. And I said, well, we all still have to pay for
know.
them.
Yeah, I just thought it
You
was
have
funny.
grandkids.
I said, but you have doctors and they went to school, right? Like, yeah, you still gotta pay for
Yeah,
that.
you still have to pay
Sorry.
for that.
So,
Yep.
anyways, we're up there a little more then, but so is everything else. so.
Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and do a.
We don't. Oh well.
Should we
do need this
move to
signed.
approval or the second one?
We can
Do we need to
There-
do it separate? Okay.
Yeah, the second one is an exemption,
Okay.
and it is the very last page you have. So if you want to do the abatement.
So on 9, I'll
Yeah.
move for approval of the veteran circuit breaker low income and blind tax abatements for the 2022 tax year.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. that, then we'll go to 10, review and approval of abatements and exemptions filed as of October 10th, 2022. And is this
So this is
late
just an
ones?
exemption. I just have one. It is the school district. The building just below the school district on Royal Hunt is theirs, and they have been renting it for years. They quit renting it, leasing it clear last July, and have not let us know, which, I mean, it happens, but they finally did. And they sent a copy of the agreement that has ceased. So as a school government entity, they no longer will be taxed. So we will have to remove the tax for this year of $8,582.10 because they should be, and they have been the entire year using it for school use only. So we'll just be exempting that building.
Okay.
Have you got that in here?
Should be the last page.
Right there.
Yeah.
8,582 and 10 cents.
We'll have to, move that back and exempt that for the year.
Okay, so we probably need a motion on 10.
I would move for approval of the abatements and exemptions filed as of October 10th, 2022.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, we will reconvene as the Iron County Commission, and we'll turn the time over to Jennifer with the personnel.
Hello again. I'll cover just the first two personnel items and then go into policy after that. In the CJC, after a competitive recruiting and selection process, Wendy Justin was selected to backfill the vacant CJC director. She will be transferring from the Sheriff's Office Victims Advocate position to the CJC director beginning October 16th, 2022. And Devin Lauritsen has requested to change his status. He'll move from a full-time Deputy 1 to a part-time bailiff beginning October 30th, 2022.
I'm going to just ask you to explain something.
Okay.
Because I've heard some scurrilous things about the process of selection for CJC director.
Sure.
Could you explain our normal process and but also the vetting that you've gone through? And I don't know if Commissioner Blake wants to weigh in either, but I have very little patience for some of the lies going around the community.
I agree with that too.
Let's clarify a few things.
Can I speak to that?
I would love for you to speak to that. That would be great.
Okay. So let me explain the process in detail. Number one, we opened the position for applicants, and we actually left that open for a solid month with the idea of getting more quality applicants. We wanted to leave a wide window open to recruit for applicants. And it worked. I think we got 23 applications. Out of those 23 applications, Jen and I and our county attorney, Chad, sat down and read through all of those applications in detail. We had discussions on minimum requirements. There were minimum job requirements and so on. Out of those 23, we offered interviews to 10 or 11. 10?
It was 11, but it ended up being 10.
Yeah.
And you did interviews over the course of 2 days, I understand?
Over the course of 2 days. We actually set those interview times for
An
entire hour each. And so we had the ability to really visit with those people and to really have some in-depth interview questions. A lot of the questions that we used in that interview process came from the Attorney General's office, from Tracy Tabbitt. So we interviewed 10. Chad and I and Jen narrowed it down to these people meet the minimum qualifications, or there were some folks in there that were local folks that didn't necessarily
Have the qualifications.
I don't know if I wouldn't say have the qualifications, but there were some people on there who may not have had quite as strong as application, but we knew them. They had worked locally, and we afforded them the opportunity for an interview because of their local affiliation with the Children's Justice Center. So we tried to we narrowed it down to 10, but those 10 were pretty broad. The interview panel consisted of myself, Tracy Tabbitt from the Attorney General's office, Chad. Trying to think who's all around the table.
Jennifer Davis.
Chad Dotson, Jennifer Davis, who's our
Friends Board.
Friends Board president, Shane Klink from the attorney's office, and Susan Carter from the attorney's office.
And then Tom Bird.
And Tom Bird, I knew I was missing one, and
Wow,
Tom,
that was a big
I sat by
board.
Tom. So it was a big board, but it was a well thought out board
Intentional.
for
Really
people
good.
who actually are consumers and users of the Children's Justice Center, as far as interviewers, investigators. It was the most well thought out board that I've ever been involved in with the county. From that board, over 2 days of interview process, we interviewed 10 people. They were scored just like we would with any other applicant pool in that process. That process generated 3 names that ultimately came out. Now, because we've officially moved the Children's Justice Center under the county attorney's supervision, the final decision for this position came down to Chad Dotson, basically, as the department head. Chad took opportunity to interview those top 3.
Again, another interview, right?
Another interview. A second round of interview, which generally there was an extra step in here that a lot of times we don't take with other positions. There was an extra step. Now, during that process, Chad and I spoke continuously, and I know that Chad and Jennifer spoke continuously about the process, about the candidates, and Chad talked pros and cons. Specifically in those interviews, there were some things identified in the board, in the panel interview, that said, okay, if this person goes on to a final interview process, here are maybe some points that we would like answered. I'd like to know a little bit more about this is something that they said in the interview, or this is, a qualification. And so Chad took those notes and clarified all of those things in that final interview process. This was the most robust and really the most pure process that I've been involved in making a hire for the county. Not that there's anything wrong with the other processes, but this one, I mean, we had the conversation from day one that we cannot screw this up.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get this right. This is, and I've said over and over in these meetings, I believe that the Children's Justice Center is probably the greatest asset to our community as far as providing justice and providing services to our kids and to those that cannot help themselves. It was a great process. And and sitting through that and working with Chad and working with Jen, we had 3 great contenders. That we had 3 folks,
Finalists,
right?
yeah.
We had 3 finalists that I believe any 3 of those would have knocked it out of the park. as far as being able to take on this role. Ultimately, that decision after that third interview process fell to the county attorney's office and Chad. Chad felt that Wendy was the one, and I have full confidence in Wendy.
Was there any conspiratorial budget or political reasons behind the choice?
Negative.
Okay.
In fact, no. No.
I ensured all of the points were tallied by myself. I put them through a spreadsheet. I've got the spreadsheet saved. We went through the process and it was decided on the top 3. And to have that many people on a board scoring, that was important to us as well. So it wasn't one person over another.
And the diverse nature of the board. And there were some really robust conversations among the board. I mean, we had someone from the public.
Mm-hmm.
We had clerical staff within the CJC, within the county attorney's office, who's been interacting back and forth with the CJC since Stephanie's departure. And so we had people that knew the inner workings as well as people that didn't as well. I mean, it was just a robust board, and there was no conspiracy. There just wasn't. I will defend the process 100%.
When you did the scoring,
Mhm.
were they fairly consistent across the whole?
Yes.
What I'm saying.
Yeah,
You know what
and
I
in
meant.
fact, even when we've done scoring to where you can throw out the top one and the bottom one, and it still was very consistent, and it still came up with the top 3. So any way that we did it, our top 3 was
the
I have to
same.
say, I having been involved in the process multiple times, I appreciate the process that Jen has. It's a little bit weird with government the way we have to be,
have to do it.
but it is fair, it is thorough, and I knew that the process here was exceptional because of the many factors they're kind of happening right now, and because of the importance of the CJC itself.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate everybody involved, and I appreciate your explanation because there's been a lot of scurrilous stuff floating around, and
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I
Which
think
is
it's important.
unfortunate.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's sad.
Which is the actual reason why we're here.
You know, and I've, again, on record, I've said a million times, the CJC is as much my baby as anyone in the county. It was hatched in a closet across the hall from me at the Cedar City Police Department. And, you know, I'm the last original guy involved in that process. And that program means the world to me. The last 20 years were built, I can't say enough to Stephanie Ward for the program that she built. I want to include Troy Little in there, who was our special victims prosecutor for years and years and years, and is now our juvenile court judge and can't have an opinion anymore legally.
Wanted him as part of our panel,
But I want to. I mean, all of the employees that have come through, all of the victims coordinators, everybody who has come through that department over the last 20 years have added to it and not taken away from it. We have been so lucky to have such wonderful support, wonderful staff. I can't say enough about the program, and the fact that Wendy was chosen. I have full confidence that she'll move the program forward, and I just can't, knowing that there would be questions going into this. We did everything we could to make this just an above board and a completely fair process, and
it's heroic.
And it was. This is one position that cannot fail.
Yeah, it's very important to our county.
It's heroic work. And through her first very painful days on the job,
Yes.
Wendy just maintained that, look, it doesn't, all this other stuff's to the side. What we are here for is the kids.
Our situation is what it is, but I believe that this is an opportunity to move forward. And I said that through the entire process. Yeah, and I want to again, I want to commend Jennifer and her process, and I pointed out that there was a similar situation when Jen took over as our director of HR. There wasn't. I mean, she moved into a position with Betsy, and Betsy was well established in that position, and Jennifer, her model as the department head there to include Betsy as an equal in that team has been awesome,
fabulous. Yeah,
and moving forward, and that's what we've really counseled Wendy in moving forward with her team within the CJC to follow that model and to do that. We have some great examples in the county of how that's worked both in HR. I would commend Terry and the building department for a similar transition. This isn't something new to us. This is something that we've done before, and we've been extremely successful. And we're not going to allow the program to fail. It just won't. And this was a great process.
I appreciate that greatly. I appreciate you entertaining my question.
No, I was gonna comment on that.
I'm glad
anyway.
you brought that
I'm
out,
glad that you brought it up.
I'd heard that there had been scuttlebutt, and I. It's unfortunate, and it's sad to think that people have to be that way, but we just need to go on and forward as a county, and we need this. This is such a great program, the CJC, and for our children, and I appreciate everything that Jennifer and Mike and all that have helped with that process. I think it was a very fair process.
Yeah, everybody worked super hard on it.
Yeah.
So
we're in good shape.
I interrupted you right as Jen had finished presenting the two different personnel changes.
No, I'm going to move to approve what Jen said on personnel items A and B.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
All right, Section 30 in policy, county vehicle. Now that we have a fleet program in place, we felt it was time to kind of update some wordings in the policy as well as add a little bit. So I'll cover what we're adding unless you want me to go word for word what we're taking out, but it's not going to alter the actual meat and potatoes, I guess, of the policy.
So I have just one question.
Yes.
As I was going through that in the packet.
Mm-hmm.
So the road department is still doing their own maintenance and keeping track and all of that.
Okay.
So is that going to, the new verbiage and all of that, will that be a problem with?
I think it's okay
that?
because we put in there intentionally to communicate, department heads should communicate with the fleet supervisor in all actions. Did you have something you wanted to add on that?
I was just going to say, really all it does is encourages road to work with fleet so that they're using the best resources so that we're not unnecessarily devaluing our vehicles.
Yeah.
Because the whole
Yeah.
purpose of this model was to be able to turn around and sell them.
Resell them.
And not lose money as a county.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concern is just that when we do make modifications, we're using the best methods. So we're not having to spend $3,000 on a patch up here or there. And so
Right.
I think those are
So
good
we
things to
still have a mechanic at the road department, and so
Okay, yeah.
the maintenance, that type of thing,
All
they're
still-
still doing
yeah, no,
on
this-
their own.
Yes.
And they've opted to do that rather than going through the fleet. Maybe that'll happen someday, but
Maybe.
at this point,
And I think
We're
the
just-
tooling for the yellow fleet is way different than the tooling for the white fleet.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and I think that's a good
Expertise.
thing. The Wade is fairly, I would say overwhelmed, but Wade's
Lot.
busy managing now. That help
lot.
maintaining that at
Yep.
at the road department's really helpful. And
Yeah, I think
until
so
we
too.
grow our fleet department to handle everybody, I think
Well,
that
and-
it's really well spelled
And
out.
I think you, as the commission, should be happy with your decision to have Wade in his spot. He's been really handling that well. so.
Wade's fabulous, and I've told him that every time we've done something else. I said, Wade, you're in where we need you right now because he does a great job. So
Well, and if you look back, Wade got the sign thing off the ground. I mean, he's innovative. I really like Wade.
yeah, yep.
He's
yep.
a good
I tease
boy.
him a lot, but I like
Good.
Wade.
He's a good boy.
Me too.
Boy,
Me too.
I stop by his office every once in a while, just tell him he's a good boy.
That's right.
he's a good boy.
Encouragement. So I thought I would just read the additions that are different than what the policy
Okay.
really entails. So just kind of going along with what you were saying, Sam, was the maintenance and management of the vehicle should align with the mission of the county to ensure the best resale value of the county vehicle. And then the addition of any modifications to county vehicles other than cosmetic modifications should be done in such a way as to preserve the value of the vehicle. Department heads are encouraged to work with the fleet supervisor to evaluate the most efficient and current methods of modifications prior to making said modifications. So just the communication is key in this, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we were okay, to have them.
We don't want
to
to take away from the department head's ability to monitor their own department. Just communicate it with
So can I put a supercharger on the Taurus?
That's
As
not my
long as you
decision.
don't mount it on the dash.
That's
As
right.
long as you don't
Nobody
drill
goes
holes in
into
the
the
dash.
That's right.
I was going to cut a hole in the hood. I wanted a great big supercharger.
You don't make it put a
Completely
spoiler on.
appropriate. Yeah.
Supercharger.
That's right.
Get the big blowers out. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
Some of
well,
those
we'll
tape.
I can roll it up to UAC. And
probably get,
Why
a
not?
motion on
Subwoofer.
C, policy update.
To move to approve the updates to personal policy section 30, part 13 through 17, and authorization form.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, thanks, Jen. All right, any county boards that we need to deal with? I know Reed talked to me. We still haven't got our ENIC person yet, but he's working on it.
Yeah, and we're still working on
He's
hotel.
He's asked a couple, but can't quite.
That
got
was
there.
the planning commission you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then hotel?
Planning commission and a hotel restaurant. There's some gaps there, but I think we've actually got some board meetings upcoming to discuss those and see who would be a good recommendation. That's
Okay.
Maria's.
Other than that, I think we can adjourn. Look at that, 12 o'clock. Is that what time it is?
And to
I
think
guess there's
I
glare.
thought we would be here till
I
1, you know.